What makes you happy?
Be yourself, be positive. Just another mindset.
Hello, friends, and welcome to a new episode of the Just Another Mindset podcast, the show that inspires you to live a more exciting life. My name is Ishmael, and each week I bring to you a topic, a conversation, or a message that does not only entertain you, but that helps you to live a more exciting and satisfying life, individually and collectively. Let us embrace collective change for the better and live a meaningful life. Today, we want to do an exercise on life vision. Before we jump in and do the exercise on the life vision and the values, I want to create a context. A lot of you have asked me, okay, where is your life heading? There's big changes. What is your vision for life? And therefore, it is very important for me, and I would want to share with you, how do I derive at my vision? How do I create a path? How do I set goals for myself? And having a life vision, for me, really gives a good guidance. This is not something I have just recently started, but this is something I have done for multiple years. And therefore, I want to share with you my approach, my method on how to derive a life vision, and you can see if it works for you. I'm fully aware that there is multiple different approaches on the life vision, and each and everybody should really find the one that works best for them. But due to the fact that I got quite a few questions, I want to share my experience and I want to give you this exercise. And I'm looking forward to hear your feedback, whether or not the exercise of doing something together works for you, if it's interesting for you, and if you guys have created life visions yourself. So let's jump in. So why is a life vision so important? For me, a clear life vision creates the direction to move forward and develop. It also helps me to push through roadblocks, and it gives me more clarity on whether or not I'm on track to where I'm heading. The three main takeaways of today's episode are basically that all of us have a very unique set of values and an interpretation of such, and therefore a very unique vision for life. A vision for life gives you more clarity and a sense of direction and where you're moving forward to. And also, we should all understand that a life vision is something that constantly evolves and changes while we learn and while we develop ourselves. So usually, at this stage of the podcast, I credit some authors of books and articles. But for this particular episode, there is so many articles, there's so much information out there. I have read, obviously, a lot about visioning. I have done a lot of exercises myself. And you will find a lot of different life vision value exercises out there. And you really have to understand which is the approach that works for you. They are all somewhat similar, all somewhat different. Some have a little twist. And you should really just find out which one works for you. So for me, it's hard to credit someone or a particular book, even though there is a lot of good information out there. And I hope that this, my personal approach on the life vision and values, helps you to craft your own. In the following minutes, I will share a very practical approach on how to derive a life vision. So you're more than welcome. You're hereby invited to join me and do the exercise as you listen to it. You can of course also choose to listen to it first and to come back later and do it in a very step-by-step approach. It's really up to you. If you decide to do the exercise in this very moment, whether you're listening the first or the second or the whatever time, I would invite you as well to do so in a very nice and calm environment that suits you. Try to be present, try to be focused on this particular exercise. For me, to find focus, it helps to have no smartphone around. I don't want to have any distractions if I do a live vision and a value exercise, and I really don't want to have any distraction if I do any deep work. Also, I try to schedule myself some time so that I can really focus on this one particular task while doing so. I don't want to have different obligations in my head that I think about, and therefore it's good to set aside some time and really focus on this particular exercise. The whole point is do it while you're present. If you're not present and if you want to do something else right now, rather focus on finishing the other task before you come back to this exercise. If it feels right, you may as well find a friend or two or many to do this exercise together with. It can be fun to exchange thoughts. It can be fun to exchange experience. This could be digitally, but this could also very well be in person. If it feels right, you should go ahead and do this exercise with a friend. If it feels like you want to do it for yourself in order to get more clarity, that's also fine. And you can try to do this exercise at your most alert time of the day. For me, that's certainly during the morning hours. After breakfast, before lunch, this is the time when I focus. This is the time when my brain works the best. But of course, this can be very different for you. For me, it's always nice to do exercise like this in a nice environment. So if you care about it as well, please try to do so. It's by no means a must, and this is something you have to figure out yourself. The last time I did my last full live vision session was in August 2021, and since then I have revisited and checked my vision 2 times, and I also have checked my values, and the values have certainly stayed the same. And also my live vision has not changed much in the last 5 months. So if you're ready, let's jump in. But before we do so, why is a live vision even important? The live vision can be understood as the ultimate goal. From there, you can derive short-term and smaller goals that help you to get there. So basically, it lets you break down your action, your activities into smaller pieces that are achievable and that you can work on that will bring you eventually to your desired state of being. For me, a vision, a clear life vision, makes it certainly easier to endure roadblocks. Because, as we all know, we will all find roadblocks on our journeys. A vision also sets your expectations. Success is hard to define and a very personal thing. But if you understand what your life vision is, you can understand if you are on track or not. Are you successful with moving forward? Are you successful with changing? And are you on the right track or not? So what I usually do is I have this very book. I have quite a few notebooks, but this is one of my favorite notebooks. And this is the one I use for vision and values. Other than that, you might need a pen or 3, whatever works for you. And then we can start. Of course, again, you can also do it digitally. You can do it in a very small notebook. You can do it on a sheet of paper. It all works for you. I just like to have this one very large notebook for myself, as it lets me revisit my last notes, my last live vision sessions easily and quickly. So let's start with a warm-up of envisioning our future state of being. So I want you to write down what comes to mind if I ask you what the way of living should look like in 5 years from now. You can write down bullets or sentences, and it doesn't have to be a specific goal or a set of goals. It should rather be your way of living, your desired state. How does it look? How do you want to live in 2 to 5 years from now? Take a few minutes and write down what comes to mind. You don't have to be too specific here. We're going to use what you're writing down here, and it's warming up the brain to think about the vision and the value, but it's also just a warm-up to get started. Once you're done with that, I want to ask you a more specific question. So, take a look at your notes one more time, and then answer the following question. What does a perfect day in your desired life in 5 years look like? Again, this can be a very unique and personal individual answer here. You can think about different components of life. How much work do you want to have? How many relationships do you want to cultivate? What kind of friends, what kind of family relationships do you have? What do you want to work on? Where do you want to live? What hobbies and routines are you following? And how do you spend your free time? And also, what other important components come to mind if I ask you the question for the perfect day? The answer is very specific and very unique. Write down what comes to mind. So now that we've gathered some ideas and bullets on how the perfect day may look like, let's put together a desired way of living for us in 5 years from now. So I invite you to take a look at the notes you just took and check which pillars of life, which areas of life are important and most important for you. You can choose 3, you can choose 10, but basically the most common pillars of life are partner, children, parents, career, family, development, passion and hobbies, finances, health, spirituality, community, and friends. Again, those are the pillars of life, the categories I use. If there is something that comes to mind and that is very apparent for you, please feel free to merge pillars of life, to adjust them, to combine them, and to come up with your own very unique subset of pillars of life that are most important for you. There is no wrong answers here. The only thing that's important here is that they reflect your desired way of living going forward. For me personally, I have lastly used 10 pillars of life to continue with. This is my partner, this is my family, development, passion, hobbies, finances, health, spirituality, community, friends. Ask yourself the question, what is worthwhile to happen in those areas within the next 2 to 3 years? What achievements does your future self want to report upon in the same time frame? For me, while formulating my desired way of living, it helps to categorize them even further. So now you understood which pillars of life, which components are most important for you. What I like to do is to write down the following things. For each of the pillars of life, for example, partner or friends, you write down the following 3. To start, to continue, and to stop. And in there, you put all the activities that are corresponding to the heading. So if you have activities that you would like to start in regard to your friends that you're not doing now, please write them down there. If there is stuff that's going well, please write them down and to continue. And if there is something that you don't want to continue, that you don't want to do in 2 or 3 years anymore, write it down and to stop. I understand that this exercise by itself can take quite some time, but it really helps me to understand where do I stand and am I on the right track. Is there a lot of stuff I would like to start and I haven't been doing lately? Is there a lot of good stuff that I want to continue? Or is there a lot of stuff that I actually want to stop? If you just look at the final table that you now have in front of you, to start, to continue, and to stop, you will get a clear understanding if you are already on your way towards your desired way of living or not so much. So really use as much or as little time needed for this exercise in order to understand if you are living your desired way already. Now you've already taken quite a few notes, and hopefully you have some kind of clarity of whether or not you're on the right track, if you should start new activities, if you should continue what you're doing, or if there's also things that you want to stop. Well, let's continue and write down aspirations for all the pillars of life that we deemed important for ourselves. This will help us to set more tangible goals and to understand how to get there. Again, I will take a look at my very personal pillars of life and their aspirations I wrote down myself. Let's take a look at my pillar of life of friends and my aspirations. I wrote down, I have at least 5 good friends for life. I further want to know that my close friends are living their best life. Life happens together with and not apart from friends. I can communicate openly with all my friends at any time. I do not have to care about inviting friends in groups. They get along as all of them are cool people. Once a year, we celebrate friendship together. And last but not least, 1 week per year is dedicated for the closest friends only. I always try to be smart when putting down aspirations and goals. What do I mean by that? SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's look into those. Your goals and your aspirations should be specific. They should be clear-cut, and you should understand what you mean by them. A few questions that can help you to make your goals, your aspirations more specific are the following. What do I want to accomplish? Why is this aspiration important for me? Who is involved? And where is it located? And which resources or limits are involved? Again, this is exemplary questions that work for me, but you should really try to make your aspirations for your desired future state of life, for your goals, as specific as possible. But also, don't worry too much. You should try to have aspirations that are measurable. If you can track process, it will help you to stay motivated and to correct course if needed. You can set deadlines, and for sure you will get excited the closer you get towards your goals. Good questions to ask in order to make something measurable is how much, how many, or how will I know that I have completed, that I have reached my aspiration. A is for achievable. Setting aspirations and goals in life should be a challenge, but it should still be feasible. If you set too hard, too difficult goals, you will not reach them, and that will demotivate you. If you set too easy goals, the same will happen. So try to be really honest with yourself and see what is possible and what is not. So some questions you can ask yourself here is how can I accomplish this goal or this aspiration? And how realistic is it that I will succeed given the constraints, for example, financial constraints? Your aspirations should further be relevant. This is the cross-check that the goals that you set for yourself, that the aspirations for the different pillars of life really do matter to you. You can ask yourself the following questions here. Does it seem worthwhile pursuing this aspiration? And is now the right time for it? Or is there something more important in the different pillars of life? Last but not least, your aspirations should be time-bound. You should have a rough understanding of when to expect what to happen and what is the completion criteria. The questions you can ask looking at your aspirations is, when is this happening? What can I do in the next 6 months to make sure that it will happen? What can I do in the next 3 weeks? And what can I do today to get closer to my desired way of life? To make this more tangible, let's take another look at the aspirations that I formulated for my pillars of life. Another one I want to share with you is on my passions and my hobbies. They read the following. I have at least 3 passions and hobbies that I follow regularly and happily. I spend at least 5 hours per week on my hobbies, and I'm able to think of nothing else but the activity while following my passion. I put in parentheses that this should be true for at least 50% of the time that I'm following my passions and my hobbies. And I can practice my passions and my hobbies with friends or my partner. Just to give you an example, yesterday I went to the gym with a friend of mine who's visiting us over here, and it was super nice to do sports together with somebody else. And this morning I did sports together with my partner as well. For me, sharing the experience of passions and hobbies, whether it be sports, good food, moments, is the ultimate goal. That again is my understanding of things. It can be very different for you, but for me, it's important to share experience and to share the moments that are worthy to me. So I hope that you were able to write down some smart aspirations and goals for your different pillars of life. And I'm fully aware that it maybe took quite some time to do so. So you're more than welcome to take a quick break here, to pause, or to continue at a later point. but you're also more than welcome to continue with me here and now. What we want to do now is derive a vision for all the different pillars of life that you have identified are important for you. So let's formulate a brief statement, 2 to 3 sentences for each of those pillars of life. And to make it more relatable, I again want to check my notebook and read out what I identified for myself. Let's take a look at the vision per pillar of life. One, for example, is for friends. They are only true friends for life, to whom I can directly and openly communicate, left in my inner circle, and we actively spend time together and enjoy life. Another one, which I want to share with you, is on health. I'm physically and mentally in good shape and are able to try any activity that sounds fun to me without any pressure to do so. Our sex life satisfies my partner and myself. Again, you will have your very own visions per pillar of life, and everything is fine. You determine yourself what's important for yourself and for your life. So once we've done that, you now have done quite a bit of writing, I believe. I have 10 individual visions for the different pillars of my life. To recall, I identified partner, family, friends, development, passion, hobbies, health, finances, spirituality, community, and career. Meaning that I have a vision for each of that now. What we want to do from here is to merge all this together into the life vision. So it doesn't matter if you have 3 or 5 or 10 pillars of life that you deem most important to you. It is more important that you now take what you wrote down and construct it into a vision for life. To make this more tangible for you guys, I'm gonna read out the result of my life vision. An open and trustful relationship to my family, my close friends, and my partner create the basement for a happy and joyful life. Personal development and supporting other individuals and society as a whole form 2 important pillars. I can follow hobbies and new activities to keep my physical and mental health safe, and I'm financially free and independent. A supporting community creates the roof for a house for a happy life. This is my very own, very unique life vision that I have created using the different visions for the different pillars of life. And I hope that you were also able to identify and to merge the different visions into one life vision. Again, it's important to understand that this life vision is not set in stone, and this life vision will change as you will change. You will develop, you will continue to grow, and you will revisit this life vision and adjust wherever needed. Nevertheless, this should give you, especially together with the activities that we wrote down earlier, whether to start something, to continue something, or to stop something, an idea if you're on the right track or not. Now that we have determined the life vision for ourselves, I would like to put a closer focus on our values. There are common values that basically embody the traits of the person you want to be. For me, having a happy relationship, living a healthy life, having good finances, having good relations to your family, only works if you live a life of integrity. And integrity is thinking and acting according to your values and your beliefs. So for me, it's impossible to live a life that's full of integrity if you do not know your core values and your beliefs. And therefore, we should understand what they are. Values reflect your personal right and wrong. They help us to grow and develop, and they help us to grow towards the future we want to live. And each and every decision we take on a daily basis is reflected by the values we choose to use for them. So how to determine your values and make them explicit? For me, that's a fairly easy 4-step approach. The first step is to find a list of common values that we want to take a closer look at. You can check the internet, and there's really a lot of resources about shared and common values to look at. Usually, those lists contain of 20 to 30 different values and value categories. If you have difficulties finding a list of values that resonates with you, let me know and I'm more than happy to share one. Step 2 is to mark the ones that are most important to you. Usually, people choose 5 to 10. Again, there is no right or wrong. Just go through the list and mark out which are the most important ones for you. Maybe you choose to copy only the ones that are most important to you into your notebook because you look at the long list on a digital format and you copy them into your notebook, or you have copied all of them into your notebook to get a better understanding if they are important or not, and now you will just highlight. The approach is really yours. The third step is to mark the ones that are really non-negotiables for you. From step 2, you should have a list of 5 to 10 values that are important for you. Now try to ask and question yourself, which of those are non-negotiables? Which of those are really the most important ones for you? Try to select around 5 values here, if possible. To make this more explicit, I'm gonna again read out my personal findings of step 2 and 3. So I have selected freedom, community, knowledge, honesty, health, relationships, spirituality, trust, happiness, and independence as my step 2 important values. This is 2, 4, 6, 8, exactly 10. Now, if I go into step 3 and I ask myself which are non-negotiables, this is the ones that still remain. Freedom, honesty, health, relationships, trust, and happiness. This is a selection of 6 top values. If you have 4, perfectly fine. If you have 5, also good. So what do we do with our core values? Before we do anything with them, we should understand what do we mean by them. We can have different understandings and we can have different interpretations of the very same value. You may understand freedom in a different way than I do. You may as well understand relationship in a very different way than I do. So what I want to invite you in step number 4 is to write down a specific interpretation, 2 to 3 sentences of what do you mean by that? What does this value mean for you? And what is your understanding of this interpretation? Again, to make it a little bit more easy and explicit, let's take a look of what I wrote down for my particular values. I'm going to choose the first one, which is probably the most important one for me as well, and this is freedom. So my interpretation is that take decisions because you want to and not because there's any fear that is driving the decision-making process. Be free but care for others. I'm very sure that there is very different interpretations of freedom, and this is my very personal description of the value of freedom for myself. To give you another example, I'm gonna read out what I have for trust. Be able to trust and do so. Trust family, friends, your partner, and have trust in humanity. Again, you will come up with your own very unique set of values, and then you will come up with a very unique interpretation of those values. And I hope that this 4-step exercise helps you to understand better what is your values and how do you interpret them. And how do you use those values to reach the life vision we have created earlier. So I hope that this exercise helped you to get some more clarity on your values and your interpretation of such, and also that it helped you to determine your life vision or to fine-tune your life vision, depending on whether or not you had done such an exercise before or not. And I want to, again, be clear that a life vision and this exercise is not a one-off activity. This is really something you should revisit more or less regularly. For myself, I have been doing that for the past 5 years in an interval in a cadence of at least every 3 months. I have a reminder in my calendar that tells me that a reflection weekend is coming. So I set aside each quarter at least one weekend to revisit my life vision and to reflect on my current actions and to-dos. That's my personal rhythm on how to reflect and look at the life vision and my values again and again. If you have a different approach, that's more than fine, and I'm very happy to hear from you what works best. But I want to encourage you to come back to your life vision, to alter your life vision on a regular basis. And with that, I want to end today's exercise podcast on the vision and the values. But before we go, I would like to ask you a few questions that help me to understand whether or not this format of an exercise during the podcast was helpful or not. I would like you to share your experience with the exercise. I would ask you whether or not this was helpful for you. Further, it would be super interesting if you could share some of your key values and your interpretations of such. And it would be very interesting to read from you personally or even with the whole community what your life vision is about. And most important, I want to hear from you whether or not this exercise was helpful. And if it would be even more helpful and worthwhile writing out a vision kit that collects all the different questions we have discussed today, that gives it structure and that you can use as a printout. If this is something that would be interesting for you, please make sure to sign up for my newsletter and send me some kind of message regarding a vision kit. This could be via Instagram, via YouTube, or via direct mail. I would like to get an understanding of whether or not it would be helpful for you guys to get a written template for this visioning exercise, and whether or not you have adjustments to make, whether or not you have advice on how to improve this exercise. And with that, I want to ask you, if you enjoy this podcast and learn from it, to share this episode with a friend or two, and make sure to subscribe to the Just Another Mindset podcast on Apple and on Spotify. On Apple, you may leave up to a 5-star review and know that by doing so, you support the creation of more meaningful content like this. If there's any future guest or topic that you would like to hear more about on the Just Another Mindset podcast, please make sure to share your ideas directly with me by sending a direct message on Instagram, by leaving a comment on YouTube, or by sending a mail to contact@ishmaelwondergarten.com. And if nobody told you lately, be reminded that you are worthy, you matter, and you can achieve anything.
Do more of what makes you happy.
Be yourself positive.
Change.
Just another mindset.